Well, here on the morning program, we often get asked by listeners to take up a particular case. Now, in this case last year, it was the women's studies students who wanted their course kept. One of them was Tanya Wolverton. She came to the studio and put her case. She put her case to the people in charge at the time, and it so happens that one of those people in charge at the time was in fact the new CEO of the Adelaide Zoo. Isn't that strange? Tanya, good morning, Tanya.
Good morning, Ian.
Yeah, now Tanya was the student who wanted her course kept. It was women's studies course, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, you've got some good news for us.
Basically, earlier in June this year, we had our TAFE graduation where Minister Tom Kenyon came out and presented our certificates, and he announced that the women's education program at TAFE SA is going to continue under the new Skills for All program, which actually means women now do not need to go and pay to study women's education also.
So it sounds like a pretty good outcome.
Oh, it's a brilliant outcome.
Now, isn't it amazing, though, that the person that was involved in all this is now in charge of the zoo? She's being appointed to be put in charge of the zoo to sort out the financial affairs of the zoo, and yet you're saying your course, which was about to be axed, has been now not axed, and no one will have to pay.
Yeah. It is very interesting.
All right. Well, let's have a listen to Elaine Benstead when she spoke on the program last year at the time that this particular course that Tanya Wolverton was studying was what looked like it was going to go. Here's what Elaine Benstead had to say. Let's quickly go to Elaine Benstead, now Chief Executive Officer of TAFE SA. Well, Elaine Benstead, your response to Alan's comments?
I guess in response to Alan's comments about cost-benefit analysis, I'd start by saying that we're actually not stopping any of the women's education qualifications. TAFE offers women's education programs across 5 sites in metropolitan Adelaide and also 5 sites in regional, and I've just heard your speaker from Mount Barker. We are continuing to offer women's education qualifications in those 10 sites. The only change we are making is that we are not offering as broad a range of electives, the subjects that make up particularly the Certificate 3 in women's education, has a very, very large number of electives.
Well, there you go. Cost-benefit analysis, lots of management speak words there, but ultimately the outcome seems to be pretty positive, Tanya Wolverton.
It is. I mean, it's a very beneficial program. So many women are doing great things now from it. Like myself, I'm a full-time university student, and there are many more stories like that.
Well, I mean, the first thing I noticed when you walked in here today, you've got a huge smile on your face. You're very happy, aren't you?
I am, extremely. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing now. So,
do you understand what went on, though? Because back then, when we were talking to you, this was about the idea of going through TAFE, slicing off the courses that they wanted to get rid of, to make sure that they didn't have anything happening that was not, as we heard, a cost-benefit analysis was being done on them. And now we hear you say, well, the course is continuing, and the woman that we heard speaking there has now moved on to another area and is now in charge of the zoo.
I think it's a lack of understanding. After leaving here and being part of the program last year, I invited Minister Tom Kenyon to come in and meet some of the women within the class. He came in, he joined in with 2 classes full of women. We all shared our stories. I think sometimes ministers or people in high positions need to actually understand what we want.
So, in other words, you went to the top, you went to the minister, and therefore you got a different outcome than you'd been getting by going to the CEO.
Definitely. He came in, he sat, he listened to all of our stories, he listened to where we've come from and where we're heading, and it's, I think, a very, very positive outcome.
So, in effect, it was ministerial intervention?
I believe so. I mean, who truly knows
who
what
knows?
Happens?
But now, just to explain for our listeners again, the course itself, it's a course dealing particularly with issues relating to women, and a lot of women who are doing the course are women that are going back to study, maybe women that didn't complete their secondary education but decide to go and do some more study.
It could be women that haven't completed high school. It could be women perhaps that just haven't been working for many years. It could be women that have come out of a domestic violence situation, and therefore they're just wanting to regain their confidence. They're wanting to rediscover who they are and where they want to go in life.
How did you convince the minister? Because it's a pretty powerful thing to do, to get a minister to change a decision and effectively say, well, look, I'm going to step in here.
I believe it was purely by inviting him to come in and talk with us, and he was very willing to come in. He was very willing to listen to our stories, and I believe the stories helped him to understand how important women's education actually is.
Do you think then that perhaps this is what more ministers should do? Get out there, go to the... I mean, I know they do regularly, but was he particularly surprised by the approach? I mean, when you contacted him?
I don't know if he was surprised. I believe that he was very willing to come in and listen. And I believe once he had listened, it helped him to understand what the program is actually about.
Well, we seem to be having a lot of it of late, don't we? I mean, they talked about closing the ferry up at Cadell, and then
Yes.
people sort of went and expressed their opinions, and the minister changed his mind on that one. We're going to discuss that one in a moment. We've already had a text from someone saying, I did a women's ed course at TAFE. It was fantastic, great news. So all the people that you were studying with last year, or they're as happy as you are, they've all got smiles on their faces?
Yeah, the majority of us are at university. We've got women studying Bachelor of Science. We've got women doing their Bachelor of IT, which is obviously not a predominantly female-oriented area. But, so we're all making
And
progress.
have you got a guarantee from the minister then that this particular area of TAFE, which was going to be cut, is now safe? It's not just safe for 1 year; it's safe into the future. A bit like the situation with the ferry, where they said, "Look, it's not just a 1 year reprieve."
I believe as long as the numbers are up, and which they are, women are there are plenty of women wanting to study women's education. Some of the electives perhaps aren't going to be happening as frequently because some of those electives actually require specialised staff. For instance, the women's defence or self-defence subject, they need a specialised staff member, and I think that the funding perhaps isn't there for that. And the other issue is that women's ed probably needs a little bit more marketing or advertising so people realise that it's there.
Well, you're doing that this morning, Tanya Wolverton, very, very well. And, of course, it has changed your life. When you came in and told us your story, you said this has been a great turning point in your life, hasn't it?
Definitely, definitely. I mean, I'm halfway through my first year at university and very proud to say that I'm there.
Well, if people want to find out more about women's ed, which TAFE colleges is it on offer, and just tell them about it now?
Well, as far as I know, I went to the Elizabeth campus. It's definitely running there. It's definitely running at Port Adelaide. You can go onto the SATAC website and apply to study women's ed. Women's ed courses, I believe, will start again on Monday coming up, so it's still not too late to register or to enrol.
So if you put in women's ed and TAFE, you'll find out about the courses.
I believe so.
Into a search engine. Well, look, great story. Well done. And you've learned a valuable lesson. I suppose anything that happens to you in future, you'll say, I want to speak to the minister.
No, yeah, straight to the top.
Straight to the top. Good story. Thanks indeed. Tanya Wolverton there.